Audio Jungle.
Hello and welcome to Mutual Fund Talk. My name is Naveen Soni. Mutual Fund Talk is the solution for you to listen to and make your financial future better, whether in terms of creating the wealth or planning for your forthcoming goals. We'll talk about the asset allocation. We'll talk about the asset portfolio balancing today. And we have with us Raji Rajesh, who is the founder director of Bankones Financial Solutions. She's also a chartered accountant and an all India topper. She's a financial planner with about 15 years of experience. Raji, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Naveen. Thanks for having me here. Today, everyone is talking of balance because we are in a very volatile or a dynamic year, 2020 or something like that. But from my last 15 years of professional experience, what I have learned or what I've understood and learned is that balance is an integral part of anything that you do in your life, and investments and your money management are no different from any other part or aspect of your life. Just as you would bring about a balance in, say, work or life or anything, balance is an integral part of your investments or should be an integral part of your investments. And this is being recognized more in a very, very difficult and dynamic year like 2020. That's all.
Okay, so before we get to technical part of it and tell people how they can balance the various aspects of their investments, I want to also ask you, you keep meeting people, you keep talking to people whom you plan for or from the peer group. So what are you hearing from the people in the first place? Is it because of the pandemic that people have now suddenly realized the need of balance? And are they now more open to creating a balance, or it's because people now have been pushing, people like you from the industry have been pushing, so they have now sort of come to terms that they must exercise this particular aspect and create a balance?
Okay, so as an extension of my first answer, this is not the year that balance should be pushed or it should be created immediately, because as with anything in life or with investments, none of the decisions should be taken very impulsively. At the same time, this is a kind of year which world over so much is happening. So this is a kind of year where you can't afford to take a very long time to take your decisions also, because it's an economic crisis, it's a health crisis. At the same time, the markets and the economy are reacting differently and things, and we are more connected with the rest of the world, but at the same time we are isolated from the rest of the world. So I feel balance has become, or the need for balance has become more necessary and recognized both from financial planners like me and from investors and from the general industry. That is why we are hearing this word balance more and more today. But whereas even the mutual fund industry or people like us who have been working with investors and clients have been advocating this message for as long as, at least for the last 5 to 10 years, when these concepts of allocation or concepts of balance have become, more recognized, or there has been more awareness regarding this. I think this bringing about balance in investments has at least been part of the talk, at least for the last 10 years. Even after the 2008 crisis, if you would call that.
Sure.
Call it that. So
are people more receptive now?
Definitely. The reason being, see, 2008, when it happened, it was only an economic crisis. And after that, the recovery was, it was a time correction in the markets and a price correction. It was like an accident, it was like a freak accident. And before people could have time to react either way, there was a fall and a rise. But this time, it's not only, we have had other economic crises also. It's not like we are new to these kind of volatility in the markets. But what is peculiar about this year is the economic crisis is so, no one is insulated from this. And it has been quite slow in picking up. What started as something happening in a unheard of town in China. I remember I had gone to the IFA Galaxy meet or something, and no one, everyone was talking about the virus. That's it. So now it has become something very big. And compared to March or April, that time investors or no one had the time to react because they were taken by surprise, depending upon the geography where you live. But today now people have realized that this is something that I have to live with. at least for the next 12 to 18 months, depending upon where you come from. And so they have to learn to live with this. So that's that's the difference this year.
Okay. So it's imperative that one has to now look at balance and start acting to create a balance, if not impulsively or immediately, but with at least a plan in place. And that is where
aligned to your aspirations.
Absolutely. So now let's talk about a bit technical aspects of this. You have various kinds of assets, and we broadly categorize them into physical assets and the financial assets.
Correct.
So first and foremost question would be, how do you create a balance between the two? Because many people are fond of having a real estate because that gives them sort of a satisfaction that they have something, physical that they can rely upon. Maybe they have a rental income or they have a capital growth, etc. But at the same time, there are some people who say, no, we want to be liquid. We want to have financial assets in our portfolio. So what is the right way to create a balance?
Okay, again, going back to the past, in India at least, I would talk in this aspect with reference to India. Real estate and gold were the only physical assets that people were actually keen about. And even if you go 3 decades back, the mutual fund industry or the financial assets was a very small segment. And most of the household savings or people were sentimental about gold and also real estate. This was a mindset thing. Eventually, even when the generations are maturing, real estate became a preferred investment simply because the interest rates were very less. There was real estate boom in Bangalore, say, or all the metros, say. You could just buy a house and in 2 years, it could, 3 years, you could sell it at double the rate. Because India as an economy and as a market was maturing or developing. See, a development happens in several phases and several market cycles. The real estate market suddenly from a very traditional thing became a real estate is a very solid investment decision. It's a very big investment decision. You don't go about throwing 1 crore in whatever form of investment, but because there was leveraging. People didn't understand leveraging or taking home loans properly. They didn't understand the impact and they went about getting easy loans, making more money in real estate. Gold has always been a sentimental thing. So when we talk of physical assets, we are talking only of these two. So gold still retains a value in India. So I don't think still we cannot, as long as an Indian society, we are sentimental, gold remains. But what has happened in the real estate market, which has also benefited the financial assets, is that people have understood real estate also is a longer term asset class. You can know, if you take the last 10 years, even in a city like Bangalore, no one has made the kind of returns that they would. In fact, in a place like Chennai, I know my clients have lost money in the last 5 years. So the issues in the real estate market, the regularization through RERA, etc., and also the transparency and the controls that have been built into the financial assets, including various areas. Mutual funds have been more regulated and stuff like that. The equity markets have been more regulated. Because of all these reasons, people have now come to believe, we have started advocating that physical assets are not your only place. You can look at financial assets. Liquidity is definitely one reason. For example, in these times, people were so happy with 5 crores and 10 crores of real estate built across 3-4 cities and all that. But today, if you want 20 lakhs to, close your credit card loan, or even 5 lakhs to close your personal loan, you can't sell the balcony, right? So the liquidity that financial assets is providing, and at the same time, you can't sell your equities also. The reason being, both markets are going through a lower cycle. Earlier, the cycles were different. So I think that is the reason. Today, it's become more imperative. We have been advocating this. This transition has been happening. But today, the balance between physical and financial assets, though it was realized by the informed investors, what you call the informed investors in the financial asset segment, is also being understood by the conventional go-getters of real estate, can I say, the businessmen, the doctors, or whoever.
Okay. So then would it be fair to say that the structure has now more evolved from just being in one class to probably being in both the classes, but now is a need to also have a balance. So some people may have a certain bias because of their
absolutely, because you can't discuss
are we now
real
more
estate
evolved in that sense?
I'm sorry? you can't discount real estate because it is as good a growth asset as or asset class as equity. But at the same time, equity also is a growth asset. That brings us to the concept of risk, whether you're going to, what is the time frame that you're going to wait for, and also how much liquidity do you need in your life. Supposing you have X amount of money stashed in a savings bank account, then you can afford to park either in real estate or in equities or wherever. But if your goals are not aligned to the liquidity factor of those investments, then you have to really look at this allocation very, very closely, especially if you're not in the H&I category and you are, actually the aspirational investor who's trying to have short-term and medium-term goals. What I need to do, I need to pay my son's college education fees in a couple of years or next year. These are the people now who are realizing, the 50-year-olds, the 45 to 50-year-olds who are closing or approaching retirement, that they have waited too long to make this transition. So that I think is good for them and good for us also.
Okay. Sure. So you use the term risk. Now, when we talk about risk, there are also some assets which are high risk, which are low risk. How do you create a balance between those two?
Okay. So this again, at the risk of sounding repetitive, would be a very highly customized thing. See, what we are assuming in this kind of standardization or process is the words that you hear in the BPO industry or whatever industry is kind of being repeated everywhere. That's what we are talking of, robo advisors or process, bring a process. So it's not very, very easy to bring a process to your financial plan. It's not very easy. It can be done using technology. It's not very easy. So having said this risk is a very personal thing, and the risk is also relative. It depends on your age. It depends on the time period that you have to wait for your goals. So it's a very relative thing. Having said that, you have to understand your own risk appetite, and you have to understand the risk associated with every investment class. That is why talks like this or the education initiatives which are being used by the entire industry or advisors is very, very important. In fact, we have our own, I have been advocating something called Money Matters for a very long time. It's a financial education initiative. So this is where one is you understand the risk associated with asset classes, and then you understand your own risk appetite, which could be completely different. The risk of a mutual fund can be, SEBI has brought in so much transparency and the categorization of mutual funds. The riskometer, there is something called a riskometer, which is now published in a fact sheet. That riskometer gives you at least a fair understanding of the risk associated with the product. But what is your risk appetite? Is your risk appetite aligned to the riskometer? Is your riskometer aligned to the product's riskometer? This understanding has to be achieved by investors, or they have to use advisors or planners or intermediaries or whatever you can call them. There is a bridge that needs to be gapped. If you are this aware investor, you don't need a bridge. But if you are not, then in which case that bridge needs to be gapped by a plan that needs to be created by you with the help of a professional. That's what I would say.
My question is also with regards to the fact that one is there an expertise that the mutual fund managers have, and also the regulatory part. Two is that even if you rely upon these professionals for their expertise and the experience and the information that they have, etc., but within category, how do you balance self? There are various categories and classes.
Yeah, so coming back to that, yes, mutual funds have been around for quite some time, but there has been a perception that mutual funds are associated with only equity markets, or any investment in mutual funds is something, is a tool or a indirect investment into equity markets. Now, this has not been the case for quite some time now, for the last decade or more at least. Again, I can talk only of the last 15 years. So there are other asset classes, and these asset classes have been in fact more regularized the last 2 years after SEBI brought in the categorization of these asset classes in 2018. So within even equity, we have very clear definitions of these asset classes in which mutual funds advise. For example, equity mutual funds. Within equity, you have clear definitions of large cap, mid cap, multi cap, and within hybrid funds, which invest in a mix of investments, we have very clear definitions. The other asset classes which have been brought in is, one is, which has been here for quite some time, is fixed income, which is nothing but a substitute to your fixed income products, whatever traditional products. So fixed income is a category which has been around at least for 6 to 7 years now, and their specific categories have been defined as corporate debt or instruments or funds that invest in banking and PSU bonds. There are several categories. But more interestingly, these are still financial assets. More interestingly, the newer categories which have surfaced, or the new age categories, I would say, or which have gained more awareness, for example, gold funds. We are talking of gold as a traditional asset, but there has always been a challenge with buying gold physically, because storage is a problem, protection is a problem, everything is a problem. Now, mutual funds offer a very easy and a very easy way for the retail investor to buy gold transparently using his accounted money on a systematic basis also. That's where your gold funds come in, or exchange traded funds of gold come in. And then the other asset category, which has been around for some time, but everyone is using more these days, is international equity. We have funds which are focused on US equity, funds which are focused on equity. These are for the more evolved investors. Again, any subject, everything that I say should be, just as someone would say, should not be construed as an advice. So for the more evolved investors, if you're looking at investing a part of your money in, say, the Dow Jones or some Facebook and Alphabet and Google, how would you do that? You can't open a demat account in the USA. You might not have the wherewithal. So in that case, there are international funds. So this is the kind of diversification which in turn results in balance that mutual funds have brought in for a long time, and now are being more understood and more publicized or made visible by the mutual fund industry itself. So I think that offers an excellent platform for investors to bring about balance in their investments in the form of diversification.
All right. We've spoken a lot about the financial bit. Now, bringing in the aspect of well-being, both financially and also physically and mentally. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, that's my favorite topic, Naveen. I'm glad you brought it up. So what I have been advocating for a long time for my clients is not, what should I say, returns or anything, financial health and financial fitness, more than health, financial fitness. So when we are talking of financial fitness, and we have talked so much about it, fitness is an aspect which is important for, fitness is important. Now we are talking so much about physical fitness. Everyone, even compared to our previous generation, people are either running or working out. So physical fitness is a very important part of your well-being. Now, after this pandemic, or even in metros or something, your mental fitness. When I say mental, you have to solve a crossword puzzle. You have to do a Sudoku. Mental, that kind of what involves your brain. You have to do a cube. That keeps you sharp. And why do we keep working, even if you have enough money? The reason is we want to be engaged intellectually at some point. So mental fitness becomes very important. And then emotional fitness is something. Now, when we talk of balance and even making investment decisions, is something that I have advocated to my clients in the last 3-4 months. Don't take impulsive decisions, either about your investments or about anything. Whatever decisions, career decisions, your relationship decisions, whatever. So that emotional fitness, where you assume this too shall pass, or you say be positive, or whatever is very, very important for your positive communication. And that's why I've not used the C word, if you can call it that.
Okay, sure.
Interview. So emotional fitness is very, very important. And then, of course, if you believe in it, and I think everyone should believe in it, your spiritual fitness is again very, very important, whether you bring it about in the form of whatever your faith or yoga or meditation or anything. Your spiritual fitness also helps you sail through such challenging times, have an anchor, have faith that everything will turn out well, the light at the end of the tunnel.
Sure. So, all these things that we are talking about now in the last fag end of the discussion, would probably lead us to a work-life balance, isn't it? Because work is one part. One is the intellectual engaging. Two is, of course, managing your future, managing your expenses. Then also within the life that we lead, we also have to create a balance between the work life. Of course, with the work from home, probably more people are now, one, conscious, two, capable of executing that. So are you seeing a trend where people are more oriented towards a work-life balance?
See, now this is a very serious question, or I can handle it humorously. People are assuming that they have achieved work-life balance because of their working from home. But I feel work-life balance that we were having, or at least a myth of a work-life balance which we were having till about last year, has been lost now. There are no timelines. You're working from home does not, your client, I mean, I'm not talking of my experience. I'm talking of my client's experience. If you're a CXO, you're having calls across, you're not traveling, fantastic. You're at home all the time. You're not commuting to work, but you're having calls through the day. Your children are, all of us are isolated in our own virtual worlds in each room. As I speak today in a Zoom call, my daughter's having her online college classes or whatever. So is this work-life balance? This is a very question that you should ask yourself. I don't believe in it. TCS has announced something. So I believe that work-life balance, again, is something that you work on, you achieve by conscious effort. You should always have it, irrespective of this year, irrespective of you work from home. Even if you work from an office, how many of us leave that work at office and come home? It's a question that you ask yourself. And when, especially as a woman, there was a recent article in ET Wealth which talked of how this year has become tough on working women. Are you able to leave your problems at home and come home and focus on your work? Is a question. And I believe in nothing is gender specific. So are we actually achieving work-life balance this year, or are we losing it? Is a question we should ask ourselves. And then always this elusive retirement. Whether retirement is something, is a monetary decision. We have received this X amount of wealth and so we want to retire, or it's a moving goalpost. We are just postponing it because of our excessive aspirations. We are not taking the plunge, or we have already taken the plunge. These are very introspective questions that you ask yourself. In fact, I would say the lockdown is a fantastic time to, and as you realign your investment goals, as you realign your, work-life goals or whatever goals, I think this period should be used by every individual to realign, introspect about what they want, what makes them happy. Is working from home making them happy? Is it helping them achieve their aspirations, whether career-wise or life-wise? That's it. If you are happy, there is some purpose, that's about it. There's nothing more to this, whether it's investment or non-investment or work or life.
Sure, that's a fair point and an interesting perspective, because many people who had a line drawn when they were working from office, now probably that line has blurred. But for many, a lot of traveling and commuting, which was there, that has brought some kind of a relief.
Also, so, it's for many who were thinking of a job alone, now people are thinking of being on their own. Why do I need this paycheck when I can work from home? And, that's a very interesting, we talk of entrepreneurship or we talk of promoting businesses, different things are happening. So I think it's a very interesting period, but we have to see what evolves and, where people land, say maybe, and where do the markets land, where do countries land. We have a very interesting election coming up, and our own country, how we are going to face this. But I say we all believe next August or next April 2020, all of us would be happy with what we have or don't have.
Well, we definitely hope so. We should all work towards the happiness, and balance, of course, is very, very important in creating the happiness that we all need. But thank you so much for joining us today. And we'll wind up our show here today. But then if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions, do write in the comment section, and we'll take that up for discussion, or we'll ask our experts on the forthcoming shows. Thank you so much for watching. This is Naveen Soni signing off on Mutual Fund Talk.